I think we're safe to start, Justin. So before we get you going, I just want to say again, thank you so much for coming today and talking with this amazing class. Just so you guys know, this is Justin Bell. He's a film, TV, and commercial producer based in LA. He's a graduate of the Peter Stark Producing Program, and he's produced notable independents such as For When You Get Lost, The Hyperions, Full of Grace, and so many more. He has worked with a ton of amazing actors out there that have won Academy Awards, as well as launching his producing commercials with global brands such as CoverGirl, Pantene, Vicks, Old Spice. I mean, you've almost done it all, Justin, seriously.
I just been making it up as I go along and stumbling my way through it is how I feel about it. So,
Well, honestly, you're doing a great job. So,
the encouragement is talking right now. So
of
yeah, thank you.
yeah, of course. So I guess we could start with maybe talking about where you were. Sorry, I'm gonna mute that. But yeah, maybe we can start with where you were raised and how you got into the entertainment industry and what led you into the Peter Stark program and all of that.
Sure. Yeah, question number one on here, and I'll keep this one fast, right? So I'm originally from the Chicago suburbs, a place called Wheaton, Illinois. If you've ever seen the movie Lucas, which is Winona Ryder's first film, that was filmed at the high school by my house when I was like 6 or 7 years old. And I can remember I was too young to like go to that, be a background actor on that set or to know about it when it was filming. But I remember watching it at my neighbor's house, and like the older sister had done some background work on the film because it was like a local thing.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, they filmed half of this in LA and the rest in Chicago." And I was like, "What?" It like blew my mind. Like, how is that possible? Two different cities in one movie? And she was like, "And they only filmed it with one camera." I mean, I'm like 7. Who knows? I didn't know how movies were made, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, one camera, like one shot at a time. That's amazing. And I can remember that being like the first time I was fascinated with filmmaking. It was a little bit of a seed there because a movie shot in my neighborhood when I was little. So yeah, other than that, I had absolutely like no exposure to Hollywood. Other than my parents, and this is very specific, but my parents were Christian pastors, and they had like an international radio and television show, like not kind of a moderate thing, not like televangelism or anything like that.
Right.
So when I was young, I'd sometimes be like in the engineering room of the radio recording, or like these little video shoots would be around. And I can remember being like, who's that person over there? The script supervisor, what are they doing? And who's that person holding the camera, right? So I had like a little bit of production exposure
So
when
cool.
I was young. That kind of was a bit of a seed, but I had no connections. My parents loved the cinema. Like we go see 2, 3 movies a day on Thanksgiving kind of stuff, like cinephiles, cinema fans, but certainly like I didn't grow up in business at all. So
I think that that's so cool that you were exposed to that at such an early age, because that really like opens up a door for curiosity and creativity. So what would you say was a very like inspiring moment for you, like watching your parents do this kind of work, that you were just like, I have to do this for myself. I need to do this.
um well, I don't know if it was stuff that they were doing, but I can remember the movie The Last Temptation of Christ came out, and this is the 1980s, probably before most of you were born. It was wild back then. So a lot of people in our church were like upset that that movie had come out because it was kind of controversial. And my parents were like, well, let's all go see it together as a family, and then we're going to go get coffee and talk about it afterwards. So kind of the sort of who I was as a person of faith, kind of grew up in it. It wasn't like, that entertainment stuff's bad. It was like, let's go engage this stuff. Let's talk about it. Let's not be afraid of it.
That's good.
And so I think like that kind of connection, that it was kind of okay to be who I was, where I was, and still love pop culture.
Yeah.
And kind of go after it in that way. But I will say kind of the seed of, it's not exactly what you're asking me about my parents, but what really got me into producing was frustration with trying to be an actor when I was in my early 20s.
Mhm.
Because my freshman year, I went to University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, which is a big, Big Ten school. It's like 50,000 students. And I was doing a lot of like theater and musical show choir stuff there. And then I transferred to a small college in the Chicago suburbs, Wheaton College, my sophomore year, because I just wanted to be closer to the city, closer to the action. And I didn't make the drama troupe
You
at
did.
this little school. So I was like starring in this stuff, not starring, but I was getting opportunities at this Big Ten school. And then I got to this little school and I got cut. And I remember the director was like, well, you can hold the lights and be kind of like the roadie for the theater club. And I was like, absolutely not. Like it cut to my ego so much. I was like, I'm going to create my own opportunities. I'm going to write my own scripts. And I didn't know what that meant at the time.
Right.
But it meant that I had decided to be a producer, to create my own opportunities. And kind of over time, I realized I didn't love acting that much. Sorry, I know there's an acting group. But some of it was the fear of rejection of like, because when I was in sixth grade, I auditioned for Les Miserables, the Broadway tour.
Love that play. Oh,
Gosh, I don't even know if there's like this kid in that musical that has two solos. I love that as a kid. I memorized the whole thing. And I auditioned for it. And I thought I got the part because they talked to me afterwards. I was in there for like 20 minutes. And about 2 weeks later, there was an article in the Chicago Tribune about how it was up between me and this other kid, and how the other kid got it instead of me, and the whole decision process behind why they decided to go with this kid, because he was kind of like a raspier, scrappier street rat kid, and I was like a little too Irish or something for them. So I'd had a little experience of like acting rejection and getting close to something big when I was a child, even though I wasn't really a child actor.
mhm.
Uh, so I thought going into producing and all that would kind of get away from rejection. But what I've learned over time is that producing also is full of rejection. It's
Yeah.
just not quite as personal, not about how you look or how you sound, or someone wanted something a little different. But it's still completely competitive in its kind of way. So my producing journey started out of frustration.
Mhm.
And I spent, fortunately for me, I had a classmate at Wheaton College, the small school, who was from LA. There was no film school at Wheaton College. He was from LA, and I had made like this little student film with him. And he's like, hey, I'm going to go to USC film school this summer and make a 16 millimeter black and white film. And again, this was the 90s, Andrea,
Yeah.
like we were
Totally
hand
different.
cutting film, like splicing it. There were like no Avids or anything.
Oh my goodness.
And so I worked at a restaurant all year, my sophomore year, almost barely studied because I was just trying to make so much money and um, and I joined him in LA for a summer at USC and made this awful 16 millimeter short film.
Mhm.
But through that, I learned about the Peter Stark producing program and what a producer was. And I know nobody had ever explained it to me.
Yeah.
And then when I heard it, I was like, oh, that sounds like me. It's like a little bit of business, it's a little bit of creative, and you get to dabble like in everything. That sounds fun because I'm a little ADHD and I'm an extrovert. And
Right.
so, yeah, that's really kind of how I got started.
No, I love that you mentioned all of those factors of what actually inspired you to get into producing, because I feel like even as actors, just from that kind of standpoint, there's always that one trigger that kind of gets us sparked. So we're like, oh yeah, can't wait to do this. So hearing that and also seeing you take action and doing those things, what I guess for those of the students that may not understand exactly what a producer does, could you maybe talk a little bit about those responsibilities of what it's like to be a
Mhm.
producer, and how you applied all of those tactics into what you do today?
Sure. So at its core, the way I define producing is it's the person who causes a project to happen. So if you were to take him or her out of the equation, like say you just weren't on the project, there would be no project because you were the engine that sort of willed it into existence, right? Like that is at its core, that's producing, like taking something and making it real. Something, taking an idea, because everybody starts with something. You might have an idea, you might have a script, you might have really talented actor friends, you might have a little bit of money, but you don't have all of it going at the same time to make it sort of actionable in the world. And I find that really exciting, like taking something kind of not static, but like it's got a little bit of something going on and trying to gear it up and make it real. So like that's to me the core definition of a producer.
Mhm.
But then within that, producing is usually not a solo business. You produce in teams
Mhm.
often, and everyone comes at it with a different strength. So it could be that, yes, I was the engine, but I didn't do it alone. It wasn't just about me. And every producer has a different personality, and a different set of strengths. So you don't have to be like, I was worried, like, I'm not super like snazzy, hanging out with celebrities on the weekend kind of person, you know? I have a family, I have kids that,
Yeah.
uh, and I'm also like, I'm not a finance person. Like, if I was interested in finance, I would have gone to Wall Street, right? Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I feel like what I'm good at is I'm good with people. I feel like I have good taste visually and the story, and I'm a good project manager, right? Just kind of keeping things on the tracks. So if you ever, my pitch to you actors to get into producing is it's not like it's just for one type of person. You can be really good. You could be like very literary and be a good producer. I know producers who just are voracious readers. They read articles, books. They just know the young writers. They know how to find and get a good story and develop that. And then once they have that, then they'll go to someone who has financing for help, right? There are producers who are just really connected with other talented actors. This movie I did for When You Get Lost really started with a community of actors that wanted to make something, and then some producers came around them to support them, right? So you could start with just really talented on-screen people, and that's your strength, is just knowing how to get to maybe some well-known actors, right? Or you could be a money person, know how to manage money, raise money, or you're good on set, you know all the equipment, or good with post, or good with so we all have like these different dials, and you can grow. Like you can. I didn't really know much about production when I started, but that's something I learned, and I realized, oh, I'm kind of good at that. But I never would have known unless I had tried and worked with people who knew more than me and learned from them.
I appreciate you saying all of that because a lot of our students really focus on creating opportunities for themselves. So exploring and understanding production and directing and gathering friends and other actors to actually develop things. I really appreciate you encouraging that because I really think that that is very important for actors, especially more than ever now with social media. So I guess that leads me to my next question is, how important is it then for an actor to understand, what producers and directors are envisioning so they can captivate, the person that they're trying to maybe work with potentially in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely important. I will say, as I was thinking about that question ahead of time, it made me think a lot of that burden is on the director and or the producer to communicate to the actor, to get them involved and engaged versus them figuring it out on their own, you know?
Yeah.
So that's part of why, like, this even comes down to auditions. Like I'll be in a room with a director auditioning folks and be like, hey, can I talk to you for a sec? Like, so I need you to explain the tone a little bit before and here's kind of how you give a note, and I'll kind of honor their time while they're in there. So I usually find that it's kind of the directors and producers who are failing at that first, before, I don't pin it on the actors immediately. But I have a director friend who creates these videos. So anytime we do a show together, he'll create something called a Loom, which is like an app or website, where he'll go through a creative deck, and explain all the roles and kind of cast a vision for how they all work together. And then he'll send it to the entire cast. So
Uh,
by the time they show up for a rehearsal or show up to set, they've already spent 20, 30 minutes hearing from the director about kind of how they see the story and how the acting is going to work. And
mhm.
they're just a little more prepared on the day. I find that to be like a really simple, honorable way to get people engaged so they're not like afraid to ask, like, I don't get it. Like, what, I don't understand this script. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we go to them and say, here it is, here's our vision. Please reach out to us with questions before we see you at rehearsals if you have any. And it kind of disarms the situation. I mean, some actors will out of on their own, volition, reach out and say, I've got questions, or I've got notes, or I've got that happens, but so often they kind of just wait till the rehearsal day.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think that
so
can also be really hard or tough for some people to do that last minute.
yeah, and sometimes there's aren't even rehearsals anymore, right? And auditions aren't even in person too often these days either, right? So just that personal time is important. So whenever I can afford it, I'm always pushing for some rehearsal time, no matter what it is.
No, I love that. And I think also as well, it really does help actors really facilitate, okay, how do I need to show up, when I'm on set? So I think that that's so important. And I think a big question for a lot of the actors in here, I would say would be how important is it for them to establish relationships with directors and producers to create opportunity outside of just working with an agent or, things like that.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So I feel like some of these methods are effective and sometimes they're not, like kind of just randomly getting pinged on Instagram. It's like, cool. I don't know. Can you act? I'm not sure. I'll see you at the next audition. Like there's a little bit of that.
Right.
But at the same time, you know, people email me or send me their reel or something too, and I may poke at it or I've worked with them once on something. It's more common that I will have worked with you on something small
Right.
and remember, hey, that person was kind of great. Could I put them up for something else? Sometimes shows get cast without even going through a formal audition process. Like I'm doing a little horror movie this summer, and it's sort of, who do you know? Who do you know? Try them, try them. So I mean, it can kind of be relational at times, but in general, and my son's a child actor, and I manage him, and he has an agent, so I am on the other side of this conversation sometimes.
Yeah.
Uh, and so you know how it goes. But in general, especially on the bigger movie, if people are kind of hitting me up as a producer, I'm like, great, I'm sending this over to the casting department so they can kind of get vetted and then it'll come back to us when it's a little more streamlined. You know what I mean?
Yeah. More.
So
Mm-hmm.
in general, I'm like, that's why we do casting. This is why we audition. This is why we read. This is why, but that's not to say that putting yourself out there is a bad thing or trying people. Just know that's like not the primary way people usually get cast. It's usually they might have to know you in some kind of way. The actors that and this is true for like writer directors or anyone who's like a hyphenate
Mm-hmm.
type role, is like, for example, for When You Get Lost. I didn't know any of those actors until we made that movie. They kind of got some momentum. And then I got a call to come in and help structure the show. And now I know this whole community of actors I didn't know before. I didn't audition them. They kind of created an opportunity for me that I got involved with, right? So it's true in any role. Like I know one of these questions about like being and having a mentor. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of didn't, but the other thing I tried to focus on was like, how could I provide opportunities for bigger producers and production companies so that when I go to them, I'm not begging for a job.
Right.
I'm showing it as an opportunity for them in some way, however big or small.
Mhm.
Uh, but certainly having as an actor, having a website, having an account, having a reel, having headshots, just all that basic stuff is, a necessity. And I started in all this before there was social media, and I've gotten a little bit better like for any of you, they're like, I hate social media. I don't want to put myself out there. I feel your pain. I am the same way. But what I did, there was a makeup artist who I work with a ton, and she was constantly like promoting herself and the projects, and half the time they were my projects. So she was posting about these projects before I could. And so I got like 100 or 200 followers for
Wow.
doing nothing. It was just because she was tagging me all the time. So I joked with her like, hey, could you manage my social media? Because you're kind of already doing it for yourself, and I'm just sort of part of it. And
I
first she was like, no. And then like 2 months later, she's like, are you serious about that? I was like, yeah. So I gave her like a little bit of money. Last couple of months I've taken a break. But back when I wasn't posting much at all, I was paying her a little bit a month, and she like went through all my stuff, pictures, behind the scenes, videos, and people have noticed like, hey, wow, you're really active again. I'm like, that's because I needed help and raised my hand and said, I need help putting myself out there more. So I understand the struggle as an actor. Like you may not be like I've worked with Zach King, uh, and he's someone who's just putting out videos every day, right?
Yeah.
But you may not be that kind of actor. You may be an actor who's doing theater, who's doing features, and I think that's okay. But
Mhm.
just having some kind of regular presence is good.
I appreciate you saying that as well, because I know that there are a mix of some actors in this group that, want to get on social media, or some of them are like, oh gosh, no, I do not want to be on social media. But I think that what you bring to the table in regards of like, at least show a little bit, like even if it's like one post a month or something, just to kind of show that you're there.
Yeah, exist.
I'm guys. But
And
yeah,
you're doing some things that I've been like, for me, like I want to post more about producing and like little, like here's how you start a production company in 60 seconds, stuff
yeah,
like that. And I'm not doing any of that. And that's kind of the next thing I'm trying to do more, like helpful information that's not like peddling my company, but
right.
it's letting people know that I'm like not dead, while they learn.
Yeah, and it also positions you as somebody that's extremely credible, even on like in regards of like sharing information or things like that. So I really appreciate that you're doing that too, and you're gonna do amazing. I cannot wait to see your stuff. I'm gonna hold you accountable for that.
All right.
Um,
Shouldn't
well, I think some of the actors would love to know what's been the most exciting project that you've worked on so far, and maybe a challenging, production experience that you faced and how you solved it.
mm, it's such a hard question. This is the one I was like hoping maybe you didn't ask, like the most exciting thing. It's hard because you can like things for different reasons. Like I remember I did this one little show about the redwood forest. It's not even on my website, but it was like 8 dudes in a van, and we went all the way up and down the California coast.
Uh-huh.
And we just had so much fun, like shooting this thing, making it, and like the sun would go down at 4. So we're like, all right, where's the closest pub here in Big Sur, And
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite memories. But the project itself, I probably would never show you, at this point, because it was like early in my career. And then
Yeah.
I have other projects like the Hyperions that I'm very proud of creatively, but also it was really hard, because it was creatively really ambitious for the price point,
Mhm.
and it just was a slog. And there were probably some, dead bodies at the end of the road, relationally at the end of that one, because for the creative cause. So, I mean, I would say, I guess maybe more pointed, like I'm very proud of the Hyperions. I don't know how many of you have seen it. If you have, it's on the Daily Wire, which is not really where I'm at politically, and it's not a political movie at all. So it's kind of weird because a lot of people have seen it, but they're all kind of under that umbrella,
Mhm.
like Kansas moms, soccer moms in Kansas and stuff. I'm like, you've seen that movie? But it's kind of like a Napoleon Dynamite, South by Southwest kind of groovy 70s heist film.
Cool.
And that one goes back to like people thought we were crazy to go try to make that movie.
Yeah.
They're like, it's way too ambitious for your price. It's wacky. This director's only done one little tiny thing. And we were just like, nope, we believe in it. And like the cast was excited, the crew was excited. We all felt the whole time like we're making something special. And you don't always feel that way when you're making, especially when you're making a commercial. People are like, great, Charmin toilet paper, cool, paying my bills, but I'm not passionate. I'm not going to talk about it at the next cocktail party.
It's
But I
not.
had Parents One where everyone kind of felt like this is it. This is the one that's kind of going to be kind of this breakout. Whether it has it or not, I don't know. But most things that people knock about that movie is when they're comparing it to like a Marvel film, and I'm like, we didn't even have the catering budget of a Marvel movie, okay?
Yeah.
Like we made the thing with like love and elbow grease, and it's shocking that it even got finished. Um,
Maybe.
so that on that one, that will also be. So yeah, I guess I guess what I'm trying to say is like there's different ways to think about your favorite project and why. There's one I did this Samsung show in New York.
Yeah.
It was so hard. It was like this $4 million Samsung campaign, all these different spots. I think I lost a year of my life putting that together during Omicron and COVID and all that. But I learned a ton. Like I think about my career as like pre-Samsung campaign and post because it was all union
Mhm.
and one of the production companies got flipped in the middle of it, and I had to manage all that process. It wasn't my fault, but I had to deal with it.
Yeah.
And but I would never do that show again. Like I would never do a show like that again.
Mm.
But I grew through it, through the
Yeah.
pain.
I know we're already at the 30-minute mark, so I just want to make sure that we have some room for some Q&A. So why don't we do some hand raises of people that want to actually ask a question to Justin? He's been so gracious with our time, so I just want to make sure that we pick a couple of people. Maybe I think we'll have enough time for like 3 to 4 questions, maybe. So anyone want to ask a question? I know Callie for sure, and then Kylie. Yep. And Christina. Anyone else? I think. Oh, and Elijah. Okay, perfect. So those will be our 4 questions. So let's start off with Callie first.
Hey, Justin. Um,
Yeah.
I definitely work at WeWork as well for my tech day job, so I knew exactly where
Okay.
you were. I was like, oh
Oh,
shoot.
that's funny.
So thank you so much for having a chat with us today. As a multi-hyphenate, as you put it, I've been writing, producing, directing, and shooting my own stuff as well. Um, I was really, I did a recent pitch deck submission for this big competition, and as being a bit newer to the industry, to this part of the industry, it was a bit of a challenge, and I stuck to my guns, did a lot of research. But I was wondering from you, someone who successfully has done it, what are the top 3 learnings you've had for pitch or concepts, or for pitching concepts that you'd like to share? Things that maybe you've learned through experience, not necessarily something you would have to Google online.
Yeah, sure. No, great question. I thought you were going to ask me like, what are the top 3 pitch fests? And I've been like, I don't know. But what I'd say is, you have to ask yourself, what are the questions people are going to have after they hear this? After they hear the log line or the basic paragraph of what the story is. Like I read a script today, which I mentioned, that's kind of like a once, which is like a low budget musical. I don't know if you remember that kind of. I think it was an Irish film, and so they kind of pitched to me as a once, and I read the script. I kind of liked the script, but at the end of it, I had no idea what the music sounded like. Like I went through the whole deck, I went through everything. I was like, where is the music for this movie? Because it's kind of critical to the story. So I had to go back to them and be like the script, no idea what this sounds like, right? So like in their deck should be like, here are the music samples, here are the artists. Here, I had none of that information from their deck because they weren't. I think maybe they got so far and be like, this should be good enough, but it's like not the things producers or executives are curious about after they go through it, right? So that's one thing is so that could be like having more information about your cast, having your reel in as a director, having comps of like the other films in the marketplace. So, for example, I have a Bible era horror film that I'm trying to get made. And people are always like, what? Oh, I'll read that. And after they read it, they get kind of scared, like, you can't make a horror film about the Bible. Like, no, there's no market for that. Well, guess what? In my deck, I have 20 examples of horror films, exorcism films. They may not be biblical, but they are directly religious. In like the entire Conjuring series, like people are like, oh right, yeah, the Conjuring series, yeah, right. So my deck gets people excited to read it, or my elevator pitch, but then I follow up with the concerns within it. Like in another project, I won't include anything about the marketing. It's a romantic comedy. Like that's what it is. Who cares how it's marketed, you know? But so every project has different dials on what you should emphasize in whether that's in an email or in a visual deck or in your discussions, you know, just jump out ahead of it, get ahead of like the main concerns.
I love the proactivity of that. Thank you.
Great question, Callie. Thank you so much. Could we have Kylie ask her question now?
Hi, Justin. My name is
Hi.
Kylie. I was just wondering when, like, as an actress, and I do a grounded performance for an audition, could you give me some examples on what would stand out to you and ways to like think out of the box?
What would stand out for an actor to come in an audition, you said?
Yes.
Um, well, I always appreciate it when an actor like has read the whole script and they kind of know what's going on. I'm not saying you have to. I know there's like even SAG rules about how much, you know, pages you can memorize and all that, but that's always like really nice when they're like, oh, I really like the script and I like this about it. You know, just to know that they took the time to do that. I'm always a little honored that they had the full context of what's going on. Again, not a requirement, but that's something that I've always noticed. Certainly just being off book and just kind of knowing it is huge. I've had this is I keep telling these bad actor stories, but I can remember I had someone come in audition one time and he was very on the page and kind of stumbling through it. About halfway through, he just threw the sides on the ground and he said, I hate acting, and he left. So let's not do that, you know, or anything, you know. But it's okay to be like, let's just say that you're in, like maybe you're going and it's not going quite as well as you'd like. I've seen actors be like, hey, you know, can I just start that over? And I would be like, yeah, sure, go ahead, give it another whack, like no pressure, kind of thing. Just like regrouping, and asking for one, you know, one more take, one more try. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that just shows proactivity and that you're prepared, you know, or want to do your best. Gosh, I don't really love something I don't really love is like a ton of like schmoozing and small talk and chit chat, you know, just friendly, professional. Certainly if the team engages you and asks more questions, of course, you know, you can do that. But sometimes I like the actor will leave and the director will be like, wow, they were amazing. And I was like, yeah, they were really, really charming. But like the acting itself was just okay. Like you gotta separate those things a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great question, Kylie. Thank you so much, Justin, for that. That was actually really sound advice. And Christina, we'll have you go next, and then lastly, Elijah. Oh, Christina, we can't hear you. Oh no.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, you can hear her.
Oh, now you're off mute. No, we still can't. You want to type your question?
Yeah, type your question, Christina. Okay, and then in the meantime, let's have Elijah ask the question, and then maybe Christina will fix her sound. Okay, Elijah.
Awesome. Hello, Justin. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to talk to us.
Hey, Elijah.
I had a quick question, Mr. Justin. So, as a producer, right, I understand like us actors, right, we have to like learn our lines, be off script, this and that, right? But what is one thing you, as a producer, appreciate when like something that an actor does, kind of like I guess like that unspoken rule where you're just like, yes, like they have like that, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like they just have like that greater understanding of working with producers and directors on set, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah. I mean, one thing is, I mean, a big thing is just being on time, to set, like being on time, being a little bit early, calling if you're getting lost, just that kind of communication up front, just, I always get a little nervous. I shot out in like the desert last month and I was like, some of the actors aren't going to show up. I just know it, just some of them are going to bail. But they all showed up and they all communicated. I'm like, yes, I mean, that's just a practical, professional thing. But also like just, you know, getting back to me about measurements and sizes and showing up your fitting, just all the helping get the paperwork back into, I can kind of tell. There can always be a little bit of vibe if like there's all these touch points in pre-pro and I'm just not, sometimes it's the agent or whatever. But I always love actors who are just on it and communicative and just getting all the basic stuff done so we can move on to the actual work. And then maybe creatively speaking, I always like actors who like sometimes they come in with their idea and they're so stuck on it that they're not going to give you anything else, So to be like, all right, let's try that. And again, I'm not a director. Sometimes I think maybe I should be on some of these sets, the way it's going. But just being like open to just like shaking it up and just trying it a completely different way and being vulnerable in that way, like that's when I know I'm dealing with a good actor is when they just have like a ton of range. And that may not be required for every role that's out there. Sometimes people cast you kind of for who you are, how you talk, your natural thing. But man, it's always impressive if an actor can just like, oh, I know we cast you because of this, but the way it kind of shook out on set was totally not even that, and they still kind of brought it anyway. I love that.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin.
Yeah, I totally agree. Communication is key, especially in this industry. So let me see. Christina, how's it going over there? Not good. Okay. Well, I guess what we can do, maybe if you're open, Justin, I can always send her question over to you and then maybe I can. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, then in the meantime, I guess, what would be the last piece of advice that you could give someone just beginning their journey, whether that's in acting, producing, writing, or anything of that
Yeah,
sort?
totally. I can remember, I was glad you asked this because I wanted to talk about this one. I can remember when I was at USC Film School, I was feeling a little insecure on like, do I know a good story when I see it? Like, do I have any ability to tell a story at all or any taste? And so I hit up my screenwriting professor, who was the guy who oversaw a lot of the Bond films at United Artists back then. And so I met with him and I expressed my sort of concern for myself. And he said, hey, let me tell you a secret about storytelling, like, and being someone who shapes story. It's just as simple as, am I leaning in as I read it? Is my heart racing? Am I getting excited? And can I put words around that or how to be more excited or more engaged? Like, I was really worried about like Save the Cat, knowing the structure and the rules of all that, you know what I mean? Like kind of the rules of storytelling and features in TV. I was a little obsessed with that. And he's like, it's very, very basic. It's like, are you entertained? Are you moved? Are you just pay attention to your instincts? Because at the end of the day, that's kind of all we have as artists, or our instincts and our tastes. And as much as what's kind of weird about Hollywood is it gets sold to us as an entrepreneurial business. And then when we show up, they're like, oh, wait, no, here's how it really works now that you're here, right? You got to get an agent, you got to get this, you got to get like, oh, no, wait, there's rules to this wild west of entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, some people say it as nobody knows anything, but the way I talk about it is all this is here, all we're doing as artists is asserting our tastes over other people's tastes, right? Like not in like a mean, aggressive kind of way, but like people told me, I alluded to earlier, like Hyperions weird, will never work. I didn't, guess what? I kept going. I didn't really believe them. It ended up being a movie that people are like, I love this weird, wacky movie. Like, of course it should have been made, right? So people, I've had like my USC thesis project, which was a written thesis. I had to present it to a panel of 8 people. And they were like, cool script, will never get made. Will never see the light of day. Guess what? 2 years later, it got made. It's called That Evening Sun. I was not a producer on it. So if you're, and this is why I'm not an actor, if you kind of stop at the first no, then you're not going to get very far, right? Everyone's going, a lot of people are going to tell you no, no, like my Bible era horror film. People are like, there is no market for this. I'm like, I don't care. It's a good idea. It's a movie that people want to see. You just don't know it yet. So kind of having that like belief in yourself, in your artistry, you know, is more important than checking the boxes and following the rules. Like, so never, we have to hold on to that. And it can be hard and discouraging and all that. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's so many movies that I'm like, that movie got made. Well, it got made because it was a filmmaker. People were like, make whatever you want, right? They didn't analyze it. They didn't, you know, Hollywood will tell you like, you need to go through this process. Well, that's because they don't trust you, right?
Right.
But if you've made some stuff, people are kind of like, let Scorsese tell Killers of the Flower Moon, even though historically they say Native American films don't work, right? Well, guess what? He made it work because he believes in it, right? And so I think it's a balance. Of course, data and all that's important. You don't want to make something totally out of left field, but trust your taste, believe in yourself, and know that a lot of what we're doing here is just sort of pitching each other who can get more excited about your project versus someone else's project. That's it.
No, I love that so much because you're really like drawing into like trusting your instincts, being okay with yourself and being happy with all of the decisions that you make in this industry. So Justin, you are quite the inspiration. I am so, so happy that everyone got to listen to you and your story. You have inspired all of us. So let's give a huge round of applause to Justin. Thank you so, so much. Yay.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and success. It's like everyone needs a
hello?
different definition of that. Success, like that's what's going to make you happy and make you last a while. Is like you got to define that for yourself and not compare yourself to others. You know, that was your last.
100%. No, seriously, thank you so much again. And huge congratulations with all these amazing projects, Justin. I look forward to connecting with you again and hearing all about it.
All right, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Have a good one.